Hey y'all, Matt here, and today I want to talk about Acts chapter 8, verses 26 and 31. And this is to basically about discipleship, about people that are lost and that can't understand the scripture, that are trying to read scripture or study or learn about God, and they can't, or those that maybe are in a position that needs a push to teach others, to disciple others. Let's go to the scripture. In Acts chapter 8, verses 26 through 31, the scripture says, "Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, 'Rise and go towards the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place.' And he rose and he went, and there was an Ethiopian, a eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all of her treasure. He had come to Jerusalem to worship and was returning, seated in his chariot, and he was reading the prophet Isaiah." So he's reading the book of Isaiah that we have in our Bibles. "And the Spirit said to Philip, 'Go over and join this chariot.' So Philip ran towards him, and he heard him reading Isaiah the prophet, and he asks him, 'Do you understand what you're reading?' And the eunuch answers him back, and he says, 'How can I unless somebody guides me?' And he invited Philip to come up into the chariot and to sit with him. And so I have three quick points based off of this short little story that I want to talk about that are applicable to us today, especially if you're lost when you're trying to approach Bible study. Number one is the eunuch is trying his best to find the Lord, to learn about the Lord, but he's at a roadblock. He's stuck. He's doing what he can, but he doesn't understand. And I can relate to this personally because I remember I grew up unchurched. I started going to church with friends, and I remember I would sit in the pew on Sunday and I would open my Bible because I wanted to understand. I wanted to know about God. I wanted to follow God. I wanted to believe, but I just couldn't. And I would sit there and I would read my Bible. I had an old King James Bible. And as I read it, it might as well have just been in Spanish. I didn't understand anything that I was reading. But I was extremely prideful, and so I wouldn't ask anybody, I wouldn't reach out, and so I didn't grow at all. I just stayed in that state of confusion. And what we see here is this eunuch, he's been to church, he's been to Jerusalem to worship where the Jewish temple was. He's probably worshiped there. He's probably heard rabbis, probably some of the most popular, best teachers of the scriptures, read scrolls from the Old Testament and teach on them, but he still doesn't understand, and he's on his way back home now. He's just left church. And he's also, at the time when Philip finds him, he's actually in the process of trying to read the scripture then. He's reading the book of Isaiah, and he doesn't understand. And if you're trying to start reading the Bible, Isaiah is an excellent book, but I would not recommend starting there. It's a very difficult place to start. If I was you, I would, luckily, because we have the New Testament, I would probably go to one of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. But anyways, Philip needed help. The Ethiopian eunuch needed help, and that's okay. And luckily for him, he wasn't prideful like I was. And when Philip came to him, he was okay admitting, "Hey, I need help. How can I understand this if nobody explains it to me?" So the first point I had is he's going to church, he's opening his Bible, but he can't understand. He's at a standstill. He's at a roadblock. Number two, the eunuch invites who God sent him in verse 31 to disciple him. So I want to ask you today, if this is you, if you're stuck, if you're at a roadblock, if you're trying to learn scripture and you can't, you feel stagnant, you're discouraged, who's God sent you? Has God put people in your life like Philip that can help you? Philip was sent to him, but he asked Philip to come up into the chariot. Who are you not asking to come into your chariot and to help you, to disciple you, to help you see the scriptures? Are you scared to ask people for help like I was? I was prideful. I wasn't going to ask anybody. If you don't have anybody that immediately pops to your mind that knows the scriptures well, you might need to go find somebody. That's one of the purposes of Three Strands Ministries. Like, we're here to help people. We want people to be able to read the scriptures. And we do that through giving out study Bibles, which are an excellent resource to help explain things to you while you're by yourself, sitting there reading by yourself, like the eunuch was. And we can also do other things. You can go on YouTube. You can find tons of sermons by excellent pastors, teachings. But the only thing about that is you don't know who credible teachers are necessarily. So find somebody that knows the scriptures well, especially if you're plugged into a church, and go to them and ask them to disciple you. Ask them to come into your chariot and explain what the scripture means. That's why they're there. They might just be asking you, or waiting on you to ask them for help. I've had people ask me that. I have tons of respect for them because I know I never would have done that. Point 3, and this is the last one. Are you Philip, and have you been sent? When Philip is told to go, he's told this, the scripture even says he's told to go to the desert. Nobody wants to go to the desert, but the thing about this is that Philip is obedient and he does what God tells him to. He goes where he's told to go, and he sees this man, and he's willing to help him. He goes and he helps him. He puts his pride aside. He's not afraid the eunuch's going to ask him questions that he doesn't know how to explain, or he's not afraid that they're going to criticize him or laugh at him or anything. He asks him, hey, do you understand what you're reading? And then he comes up in the chariot and he just helps him. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you are reading the scripture and you're plugged into scripture, you're plugged into church, and you would call yourself a believer, you need to see fruit in your ministry, because you have a ministry. Jesus has commanded all of us to go out and to make disciples, and that means we have relationship with people and we teach them the scriptures. So you need to be bearing fruit. Jesus says a tree will be judged by his fruit. So my question to you, and number 3 is for believers or people that are being discipled, who are you discipling? Because you need to be bearing fruit. And Jesus even talks about those twigs, those sticks that aren't bearing fruit, they're going to be cut off and they're going to be thrown into the fire. And that doesn't sound good. That's something I don't want any part of. So go out and share what other people have taught with you to people that might be stuck in their faith. And I promise you, the best answer to a question sometimes is, I don't know, but let's find out together. And then you might both have to go to the person that's discipling you to find the answer. Or you might be able to take that opportunity and show them how to use a study Bible or a resource to find that answer, and you both learn something together. You grow in the Lord together, and that's where humility comes in on both sides. But I hope this video has been beneficial. I hope this helps you, especially if you're stuck. If you need a study Bible, if you're stuck and you don't have study notes or anything like that, and you think that could assist you, my phone number, my email address, they're in the notes below. Call me, text me. If you're local, I'll get you a study Bible. I'd love to help you out however I can, but I love y'all. Blessings.